You're listening to the Whole Church Podcast, a proud member of the Anazal Podcast Network. Our efforts to educate and unite the church are made possible thanks to our sponsors on Patreon, Captivate, and Apple Podcast. You could join them on one of those networks, or you can support the show by making a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the show's description. St. Paul writes in Ephesians 4, verses 25 through 26, and then 31 through 32 in the New American Standard Bible. Therefore, ridding yourselves of falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor, because we are parts of one another. Be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. All bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and slander must be removed from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, compassionate, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. In this pericope of scripture, Paul is writing to the church at Ephesus about what it means to be the church. Here he's telling the church how to behave towards one another. And after this section, he's going to go on to discuss like families, how husbands treat their wives, all those kind of things. Dr. Thomas Jay Oord, how can we better and practically learn to speak truth, have a healthy relationship with anger, and forgive one another? The stuff that Paul is talking about here. How do we actually learn to do that?
Well, you picked one of my favorite passages of Scripture this time. That passage ends up...
So rare.
Yeah. That section ends up, or transitions into chapter 5 with these remarkable words. Imitate God as dearly beloved children and live a life of love, like Jesus loved us. I think that the core of trying to make sense of all the advice that you just read from the Apostle Paul, of things you should not do and things that you should do, I think ultimately those come down to love. I'm always struck by the fact that in that list, he says it's okay to be angry, which I think is important, since I think we need to be angry at ourselves and others when we hurt one another. But I found in my own life that putting on those practices that you read and putting off the practices that are harmful, it's an ongoing thing. It's a thing that I have to make decisions about for myself, but also being a part of a community actually helps me, or can help me, doesn't always help me, can help me in that practice. And one of the reasons why I regularly attend a church.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Hey everybody, welcome to the Whole Church Podcast, possibly your favorite church unity podcast. It's okay if it's not, we understand. We have unity with all those other church unity podcasts too, probably, you know, assuming that the other unity podcasts are actually about unity. Yeah.
As long as they agree with us, we're unified with them.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's why we have the podcast. It's unity is a complicated subject, but we are here to talk with the one and only Dr. Thomas Jay Oord. TJ Tiberius, one Blackwell, my co-host, is allegedly going to be here soon, so you guys will get to hear from him. This is the first recording we've done this year, not the first episode out, but first time we've recorded this year. And we just kind of wanted to talk about stuff that me and TJ and maybe Dr. Oord has changed our mind on over the last, for us, the last 7 years. Dr. Oord's allowed to go back as far as he wants. If he's like, one time I changed my mind about whatever, we're just going to talk. Because this has been quite a journey for TJ and myself, and where we've come on things. And Dr. Oord has been in a large part of some of the topics we have changed our mind on. So it's not going to be in a strict format as you guys might be used to listening to this show, but we got a few different categories, like what we've changed our mind on about the essence of God, humanity, sin, time, just stuff, we're going to go there. Before we do, I have to attempt to do TJ's parts that I'm bad at. So try to go to our website, purchase one of our t-shirts to promote our show. That's going to help raise money for all the podcasting needs. We got to go to Theology Beer Camp at some point. We got to keep paying people to post this on the, Spotify and Apple Podcast. Equipment, I need new equipment. There's lots of needs for podcasts. Buying a t-shirt helps, us fund those needs, and it helps get the word out about the fact that our show exists. So it's a twofer. It's huge. It's really helpful. I'm wearing one right now that's got the whole church podcast in 4 different languages. It's, I think I'm trying to remember all. I know Hebrew, Japanese, Aramaic. I'm not sure what the other one is. I'm forgetting right now. I think it's Ethiopian, but I think it's not called that. Anyway, lots of cool shirts. Check them out. They have in the description what they are. So if I can't remember, you guys can read.
Ethiopian is probably Alhamrik.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. This is why we have to have people with doctors on to remind me what I'm trying to talk about. With that, though, we do have a favorite form of unity, or I do, is you can't be in disarray when you're being as silly as I like to be. So, starting off with a silly question. I'll go first, give you time to think about it. Hopefully TJ shows up during this part, and I can make him answer too. If you had to choose any one cartoon character as a teacher, who would you choose? See, it's been a minute since I wrote this question. I'm trying to see if I meant I guess it's an open question. I don't know if I'm looking for a cartoon character I think will actually educate me and make me better, or one that I just think would be entertaining if I had to be in a class. Could go either way. I'm gonna cheat and talk about something from my other podcast. Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're doing an episode about him on Systematic Theology soon, so he's on my mind. He's got a little bit of that humor, He says, you're not supposed to cry about spilt tea, but it's just so sad. And he also has those words of wisdom throughout the show that I think, even if he's not maybe the most head knowledgeable person, he's definitely got a lot of wisdom, and I think that's something I probably need the most help in. So I'm going to go with Uncle Iroh. Dr. Oord, if you had to have a cartoon character as a teacher, who would you go with?
Man, I don't know. I'm going to go with Olive Oil as a old throwback.
Yeah.
You know who Olive Oil is?
Yeah, Popeye's girlfriend.
Yeah. She always seems to know how to handle Popeye with his wild things he does. So she seems pretty wise to me. I'll be her student.
I like it. TJ's not here yet, so I get to answer for him. He can't dispute. TJ's answer is going to be Princess Bubblegum from Adventure Time. She's a scientist who somehow knows how to create candy people out of nothing. Creation ex nihilo almost. She has a little bit of candy. Can make zombies, can cure zombies. She's like the ultimate scientist and gets no credit for it. So that's what TJ's going with. He's going to learn science with Princess Bubblegum. Yeah, he doesn't have a say. So I don't think he'd hate that answer though. He is a fan of the show. So all right, with that silliness over, we'll start with you, Dr. Oord. You don't mind if I just say Tom, right?
I prefer Tom.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's it feels weird saying Dr. Oord, but on the podcast, I feel like I have to at least introduce you. All right, so Tom, let's start with yourself. What are some stuff that you've learned in the last 7 or more years that you think you have grown in yourself?
Yeah. And now these have to be theologically oriented, or is that what you prefer at least?
Just in general, if you have any, what are the big things that you think you've really changed your mind on in life?
Yeah.
If there are any, you could have been born correct about everything as far as I know.
No, that's definitely not the case. Yeah. Well, I've been the last year, we were talking before the show started, I've been writing a Systematic Theology of Love. It's going to be 3 volumes. And the first volume should be out in March of this year, 2026. And that process has been a lot of fun. The kind of things I've learned, I wouldn't say they've changed my life radically or changed my, my theology radically, but there have been some surprises that maybe I'll share with you. Here's one of them. For the first chapter of this book, I'm making an argument. Well, I start off with this provocative sentence. this is the first book ever written called A Systematic Theology of Love. And then I say, that seems like really strange because, at least in the Christian tradition, many of us have said that love should be central. And yet no one's called a book A Systematic Theology of Love. And so that then prompted me to kind of explore reasons why love has been sidelined, forgotten, neglected. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that has to do with other themes that theologians have thought more important. But one of the things I did is I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of the 40 best-selling systematic theologies right now. I assume they drew mostly from Amazon, but probably other sources. And I was not surprised to find out that Wayne Grudem's is number one and has been for decades. Mm-hmm. But when I looked at the other 40 systematic theologies up there, all 40 of them were written by men, I think all white men, and all of them written from a Reformed evangelical perspective. And I thought to myself, well, no wonder so many people who are moderate, progressive, not white, not male, think that writing systematic theologies is something just white guys do if they're evangelicals. And so I didn't realize, one of the things I've learned then in the last year is that the enterprise that I'm doing, even though I am a white guy, I'm not a Reformed evangelical person, it's pretty unusual amongst theologians.
Yeah. Do you think part of that is just because evangelical Reformed people are better marketers?
It could be. I think also the evangelical Reformed tradition has prized a particular kind of rationality that's very deductive, often analytic, and systematic theologies tend to, privilege that. I'm like a rare guy who's not an evangelical, Reformed evangelical person who also cares about rational consistency and coherency, etc. But I think part of it has to do with that emphasis. Now, what's strange is that even though the evangelical Reformed tradition emphasizes rationality, they also are quite honest about embracing outright contradictions, like the idea that God controls everything, yet we also have free will. There's a bunch of evangelicals who say that. I think it's absolute nonsense. It's contradictions on steroids, but they still embrace that view. So there's a strange thing going on there. They affirm and appeal to reason, but they're okay with setting reason aside if it contradicts a certain view of divine sovereignty that they think is super important. And if it contradicts a particular reading of the Bible they think is important.
Yeah. Though that's what's it's interesting because I think a lot of that is because they start with everything in the Bible has to be completely true.
Right.
So then they end up having to accept contradictions even when they're trying to be analytical.
Exactly right.
I do want to say, so this is a church unity podcast. I do believe there are some people in Reformed circles that I would still, be okay with. I'm trying to think of the right way to say that. Then I'm like, yeah, they're good Christian people, even if I think they're wrong.
Yeah, but this is not a matter of, we're not talking about people's character here. I know some very loving folks who are evangelical Reformed. I know some very unloving people who aren't. So this is not a question of character. This is a question of rational consistency and theological coherence. Yeah. And much of the evangelical Reformed tradition's theologies, I think, are inconsistent and incoherent.
Yeah. I just want to throw that out before I said I do think a large part of it too, I don't know if it's marketing, but more of I think that sometimes some of those evangelical Reformed people have an easier time pushing stuff because they have the mind frame of if people don't believe the right, presuppositions or whatever, they're going to burn in hell for eternity.
Right.
Which is quite a motivation compared to when you lose some of that and you're like, I don't think that that's all true. I'm like, actually, I'm not even sure if I believe in hell. The motivate, I believe God is all loving, and my motivation now is I want everyone to be loved, which is a big motivation. I think sometimes fear drives people a little bit more than hope, maybe.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, 100%. Not only does it motivate systematic theologians to want to get their books out to, market and promote, but if you're told your eternal destiny hinges upon having the right sets of beliefs, you're going to be motivated to read a systematic theology that purports to have the right sets of beliefs. So it also helps gain readership.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My wife didn't grow up in the same kind of Christian circle that I did. She wasn't as in that world as I was. So we actually had a similar conversation recently because of me and one of my family members. I'm trying to be really careful. had a pretty strong disagreement about some stuff. She was a lot less understanding than I was about how they spoke to me. And I was kind of no, it wasn't actually out of anger. It's they are afraid I'm believing the wrong things and will go to hell forever.
Right.
I don't like what they said or where they're coming from, but I actually still think that that's love. Just maybe misplaced ideas and stuff behind it. Yeah. I think the concern is, you don't want your family member burning forever. It's kind of reasonable.
Yeah. And it's a lot more understandable when your family is, old school Southern Pentecostal. Like when they say you're going to go to hell, they don't, they're not saying they hope you go to hell. They're trying to stop you from going to hell in their mind.
They legitimately think that that's what's happening. Yeah. Also, guys, this is TJ.
Yeah. They'll tell you that you're going to hell because you don't believe the right things or whatever. And then also say, and God loves you perfectly. God is perfect love, which I think is, again, incoherent, inconsistent. And we ought to just be bold and just put it right out there. None of this wishy-washy, well, maybe a loving God can send people to hell forever because God's justice is a part of God's love and God gets pissed and whatever. All that kind of hem and hawing, I'm just done with that. I just think we ought to just be blunt. Now, it gets me in trouble with my family members too. So I try to say it in a way that's diplomatic, but I don't pussyfoot around like I used to.
Yeah. Well, you actually are part of what changed my mind on some of this. So,
good.
Yeah. So that, that's a good.
Tell me what changed.
I don't know exactly where I was when you and I first started talking, because I've been struggling with a lot of thoughts for a long time and still am. But a lot of the mindset around some of this stuff is, well, God is love, and we don't think it's loving because we don't understand love. It's not because, that's not love to send someone to hell or whatever. It's because we don't get what love is. It's kind of the thing.
Right.
At some point, you had said to me that if you can imagine a God that's more loving than God, then you don't really see a reason to worship God. And that clicked to me, or I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. If I could think of something more loving, and God is supposed to be love, something's not adding up here.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. Yeah. I think you're right that, what happens often in conversations I'm in when I'll bring up, let's say, the love and hell thing, people will say, well, in some mysterious way, it is loving that God sends people to hell. I don't understand it. It's beyond my ability to grasp. But since I'm committed to God being loving, then I have to say it. Those same people don't waffle around when it comes to God being sovereign. They don't say, in some mysterious way, God is sovereign. No. When it comes to sovereignty, they got a pretty clear notion God controls things. And so it's a matter of them being okay with mystery on the love issue, but not on the power issue. And I think you ought to try to clear up all the mysteries you can and have a theory of divine love and a theory of divine power that's coherent and not play the mystery card for either one. But most people I know in the Reformed evangelical tradition will say God's loving and powerful, but they play the mystery card when it comes to explaining that love.
Interestingly, Mystery is one that I haven't changed my mind on. But you've caused me to be more careful with how I talk about mystery. I don't want mystery to be a cop-out, but I do still think there are some things that I will say are divine mystery in a way that's, I find sacred, holy, something that I get out of. Like, it's not necessarily, I'm using it as an excuse, more of a like mystery in the sense of spiritual, uplifting. It helps me. So I'll use one, because this is one I'm still struggling on, that we've disagreed about, and I am still struggling. I will disagree with myself probably in a week. So let me throw that out there too. God's relationship to time, I kind of put in mystery, because I think that I am limited to linear thinking. I can only think in linear time. Whereas my belief in God right now, subject to change, probably will change. I change a lot. I think God is in all things. I would say panentheism, not that God is all things, but he is in all things. And since we know that time is relative to experience, different people, different places, different gravities, etc., God's experience of time, if he is in all things, has to be different than mine. So I still put that to mystery, but I don't think it gets God off the hook for anything. It still doesn't allow him to know the future or in the future or anything, but I still have to think something about God is mystery to me, because I can't think in the same temporal frame that he would. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
I can't argue with that. There's a lot we could talk about with relativism and what that would look like if you were able to perceive that. And maybe when, we build a spaceship that can be near a black hole without getting torn apart, we can figure something like that out. Yeah. Just not yet.
Although, for the silly question, you chose Princess Bubblegum as your teacher. She might be able to help you figure that one out.
I actually chose The Brain from Pinky and the Brain, the cartoon about the rats.
Fantastic. That's a good answer too. Yeah. So, Tom, you see, we were talking about stuff that you may have changed your mind on. We were talking a little bit about love, your unique kind of perspective on that. I'm curious, because we've had you on a few different times. One of the things I'm really curious about, having a daughter who identifies with the LGBTQ movement. Have you always been open when it comes to that kind of stuff, or was there a time that you weren't as open and you kind of learned differently?
I changed my mind on queer issues in 1994, but I'm constantly learning new things and changing and adjusting. But I turned the corner in 94, and then it's been a matter of working out details ever since then.
Yeah.
I was queer, what we now would call queer affirming. We didn't say that back in those days, but I was queer affirming long before I had any kids. And my own child has come out only in the last few years. So, but
what led you to change your mind?
Love, of course. The only thing that really matters. Well, the mechanics of it were this. I was in seminary, and I was in a class that, as a project, you were supposed to put together like a curriculum for a lesson, like a Sunday school lesson or something. And I had wanted to get to the bottom of what in those days we called the homosexuality question. And I had a couple other friends who were also thinking a lot about it. So we decided for this class to put together a whole curriculum around that issue. And we used the Wesleyan quadrilateral, scripture, reason, experience, and tradition as the four lenses by which we would ask the questions about, again, in those days, homosexuality was the word we used. And it was in that process that I changed my mind, because I read scripture, I read testimonials, I thought about it, I looked at church history, and I just realized the arguments against full acceptance of queer people just are bad arguments. And they cherry pick scripture. They don't look at the whole drift and scope of scripture. They take a few passages and they interpret them a particular way. Yeah, so I changed my mind a long time ago. It took 30 years for me to get kicked out of the denomination. But yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the run, though.
Yeah, 30 years. I was going to put that down. But did you like talk about that with your group? It was like you're getting to the end of this project and you're like, hey guys, I don't think queer people are evil anymore.
Yeah, and they agreed with me. So we came down at the end of that. The three of us all decided, yep, we're going to be, again, we didn't use this language then, but queer affirming. So when we wrote the curriculum, we said we aimed it so you had two options at the end. You were either going to be queer affirming like we were, or you were not going to be queer affirming, but you had to figure out some way to live a life of love in light of that. Now, I now think that that's not a very tenable position, but I know lots of people who try to do it. But that was kind of the two. We were eliminating the hater option, the Westboro Baptist option. We were eliminating that and then saying, okay, you're either going to be a queer affirming or you're going to try to be as loving as you can, but still think that there's something wrong with the activity or the lifestyle or whatever language you wanted to use. And then the question was, I had to ask myself was, do I stay in this denomination? Because at the time, there was hardly anybody talking about this issue in my denomination. And it was only sort of growing culturally. This was back in I don't know if you guys may be too young to remember this, but, this is back when Ellen DeGeneres comes out and we had, what's it called? Three Men? No. What was that show on TV?
Three's Company?
No, not Three's Company. What's that called? Shoot, I forgot the name of the show. Anyway, in popular culture.
Is that the original Queer Eye?
No, that was long before Queer Eye. You guys are gonna know just the name of the show if I can come up with it. Oh, shoot. Oh, well.
I was -5 at the time. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Will and Grace. Will and Grace.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was making lots of, that was in the 90s sometime. I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up deciding I was going to stay in the denomination for 3 reasons. One, I really believed that the core theology of the Church of the Nazarene that I was a part of, which is a Wesleyan theological tradition, I really thought our core centered around the issues of love. And I thought it was the loving thing to be fully affirming. So I thought I had theology on my side. Secondly, I started to realize there were other scholars in the denomination who thought like I did. They were just really quiet about it. So I thought, well, maybe I could become a part of, a growing movement that would make change. And third, I wanted to be a theologian in a Christian university. And I knew there would be students coming in asking questions about sexuality. And I thought, well, that I could be uniquely positioned to help some people in that scenario. And I did help people, over the 20-some years I was in Christian higher ed. So I stayed in the denomination for those reasons and eventually got kicked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we've covered on this show. So
yes,
I'll try to link that below. Yeah, queer affirming stuff is something another one I changed my mind on too.
Okay.
But my journey was a little bit different. I had got to the loving thing and all of that, I think, pretty early on, but I had grown up and for a long time still held to inerrancy with scripture stuff.
Yeah.
And I kept the way that I read the Bible and I tried to interpret it, I was like, there's a lot of places where they try to use this about same-sex relationships that I think are just wrong, that's not what the passage is about. Yeah. But there was at least one or two that I was like, I think that is actually what this is talking about. So I couldn't be there, but I really wanted to be.
Right.
And I think it was actually a conversation we had on this show with Pete Enns that made me go, I don't think I'm actually an inerrantist anyway. Because he was talking about it. He was like, if you think about it, you're saying this is what inerrancy is. That means you believe these things. And he's laying it out. And I'm like, oh, I'm not. I just feel like that word to me was sacred. So I felt like I had to keep something that I was still in inerrance. And then once I let go of that having to be something sacred that I had to believe, It kind of let me change my mind on that, and it felt really good. I was really happy to be able to.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
I once had a student who was an inerrantist but was queer affirming, and I kind of pushed him on. I thought, now how do you get there? And it turns out he had read some of the passages, like the Romans chapter 1 passage about man not lying with a man, woman with a woman, and the Leviticus passage of man not lying with a man, whatever. And he had in his mind said, okay, that's God's word. It's inerrant, but it's for that time of day and not for us here and now. So he kept inerrancy, but did this juggling of deciding some passages are context specific and not universal, which I don't I mean, I think he's right that there are context specific passages, but it's an interesting thing to do. I think you got to give up on inerrancy too, but
yeah. What's funny, I actually, with the Leviticus ones, will probably agree on that point, because both of the times it talks about it in Leviticus, it's in a series of laws being addressed to the Israelites after talking about why they're not supposed to be like another nation people. And what we know about those other nation peoples is they were using sex as a form of dominance, of showing authority. And I'm like, yeah, I think in that context, what he's actually saying is we're not using sex in this way. And I think we can be more general instead of specific with that reading. So I think for a long time, I was like, yeah, Leviticus, that we don't need that to be about that. Sodom, Ezekiel tells us, isn't about that. Right. But then you have that Romans 1. And I don't think there's a way, if you're going to stay inerrant, to read Romans 1 and that not just straight up say this stuff is wrong.
Yeah. Well, what my friend did was, or my student did, was read biblical scholars who said that Paul had in mind older men, younger boy sexual relationships, or older woman, younger woman.
I've heard about that too.
So pederasty, basically. And that was common in the Roman times. So you could envision that being about something that I'm also against. I don't think, I'm against that sort
We're
of
all
thing.
here against pedophilia. Sorry, Donald Trump, if you're listening.
We can say that.
I love it.
But
I think there's good reason to give up on inerrancy too. So,
yeah. But maybe you don't have to for that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know something I changed my mind on.
Yes.
This is going to go back to what we were talking about earlier on mystery. I don't know that I changed my mind, but conversations with you guys and with others made me realize I needed to be more specific on what I mean by my suspicion of mystery and what I can affirm in terms of mystery. And so in writing this systematic theology, I've got a whole chapter on that. And so you guys are partly to be credited with helping me clarify my thoughts on it.
I mean,
good. Yeah. Anything that'll let us get more pedantic. That's what I'm a fan of. That's where I want to go.
He's actually going to start another just pedantic podcast. It's all that it is.
We'll talk as the pedantry.
It's funny. I do think my relationship with you, one of the biggest things, other than the stuff I've actually changed my mind on, is a lot of that clarifying stuff of like, I think that technically I probably still believe in omnipotence, omniscience, etc. But I will no longer use those words because of what most people think you mean by that. So I'm going to say omnipotent. Again, I'm going to, if I think God is in all things, that to me is all powerful. But the problem is if most people think all powerful, they think that means you can do anything. That's not what I mean. So like if I had a lion is powerful enough to turn the light on and off. That does not mean the lion is going to turn the light switch on and off. So that's where I'm at, but that's where I'm like, I won't use those words because I think what people think I mean and what I think I mean might be two different things. So I'm like, maybe I just won't use those words.
Well, let me push you a little on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You said God is in all things. That sounds like the kind of language most people would use for God being either omnipresent or a panentheist. But you're using that language for omnipotence. So how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I'm thinking more panentheism, but to me, if God is in all things and has a part in all things, that feels like it would also be all power, because like what power exists outside of all things? I'm not really sure. But that's
you're in my experience, but I have power to decide lots of things that you don't decide for me. So you can be in my experience, but not have all the power. Why not say that? Why not say the same to God? God's not only in my experience, but in everyone's experience. But that doesn't mean they've lost power or something.
Yeah, being in all things is different than having control over all things. Yeah.
Right. Or even having all the power.
I need to keep wrestling with this one, which is another good reason not to use words like omnipotence when I'm still not quite sure where I'm at.
I love it.
I had a few different categories I wanted to run through to see if there's anything we changed our minds on that we want to bring up. So I'm just going to run through a couple. Let's start salvation. TJ, do you think in the last 7 years you would all have changed your mind or learned more about what salvation is?
Well, 7 years ago I was 18.
That's when we started this.
19. Forgot how old I was.
You've done this podcast your entire adult life.
Almost.
Technically.
Very close to my entire adult life. So at least a little bit, but by this point, I don't really remember.
I'll throw out. I'm not sure when it changed. So this is more of a, like, I think just gradually how I thought about it changed. I don't know if there was like I changed my mind right here and this is why. But I think for a long time, I might not have said it explicitly, but I think I thought of salvation as we're being saved from hell because we deserve hell. And that's why it's salvation and being saved from that thing. And at some point, people showed me Greek words and I learned more things. And now I think of it more as wholeness making. And then I haven't anything to do with hell and more to do with what makes me. How am I whole? How am I fully, in love, whatever you want to say it. But I think that wholeness making as opposed to not going to hell would be how I think I've changed my mind on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've changed my mind. Go ahead, TJ.
Well, I was just going to say, at some point, I came to start thinking of hell as just being here, just earth.
Was it
as
when
good
Trump
as life
became
can
president?
be? I was 16.
So yes.
That was, but I was 17. I voted in that election for whatever that counted for. And where was I? This is hell. And as good as life can be on earth, it's just so much worse than heaven that this is hell. At some point, that's where I started thinking of our life on earth as. And most days, hell's not that bad.
That's a fun quote. Most days, hell's not that bad. I'm still in between annihilationism of like it just being like, the chaff being burnt up, or most days I think now I'm more Christian universalist of like, I think eventually we all end up in as part of love. And now I'm not really sure what I mean by heaven either. I'm like, maybe it's just that whole divine consciousness thing that process people like to say. Maybe they're right. And I think I'm okay with it if that's all it is. But I don't know. That one I haven't changed my mind on. I'm just kind of agnostic towards, I think.
I think I've gained some clarity in the last 7 years. I'm definitely not a universalist because I don't think God's omnipotent and can bring everybody salvation unilaterally. And because of that, I think we have to participate or accept or respond to or in somehow make a contribution to our salvation. And not everybody may choose to do that. So I'm not a classic universalist. I'm pretty confident of that now. Now, I'm a person who thinks that God never gives up, and it could be that God's going to eventually convince everyone to cooperate. But that, as I see it, is different from universalism as Karl Barth sees it, or David Bentley Hart, or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to name it?
Name my view?
Yeah.
I call it the relentless love view. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that in this life, and since I happen to believe in afterlife, God always invites, God always loves. We always have the possibility to cooperate or not. When we do cooperate, we enjoy the natural positive consequences of cooperation. When we don't cooperate, there are natural negative consequences. God doesn't annihilate anybody, send anybody to hell. And I have the hope that God's relentless love will eventually win over everyone, but not the kind of guarantee that most classical universalists will propose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is why, it's an important difference, but I don't think it's a huge difference. I'm more just kind of, again, depending on the day. Some days I am in that annihilationist camp still, and I'm like, there's just no way. Like Donald Trump, Hitler, there's some characters up. Stalin, yeah, I don't know. But on my good days, today I feel like a universalist. I think it is more of a like, I don't know how long it'll take, but I think that love is powerful enough that I believe at some point we'll all either be in heaven, afterlife, or divine consciousness, something of the sort.
Yeah, that's my hope too.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. And that's where TJ will be the first one to start an afterlife podcast. All right. What about God, the divine? Is there anything we've changed our minds on, TJ, about God?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, a little.
Anything you want to name or just?
The list of things that haven't changed is much shorter.
Yeah.
Much shorter. I still don't think he was a white man when he was on Earth, or that he was tall. That hasn't changed.
Yeah. I think I agree, especially with those two. In a weird way, I think the biggest thing that's changed about my views with God is the certainty. Like I just have far less certainty, and I'm a lot more comfortable. Because I think at some point I probably did have a lot of like, I'm not sure about God thing, but I'm so uncomfortable with that idea because I'm like, if I know that I know that I know that I'm going to go to hell forever. I'm not really afraid of the hell thing, so I'm just kind of more comfortable with the I don't know. Like I'm still wrestling with it because I think it's important, but.
Well, I've never really claimed to know God because that's not my place. I'm a man.
You're pot almighty, though.
Yeah. So with the title thrust upon me, I've had to form some thoughts over the past 7 years.
Been forced to. Yeah.
I think for me, the thing that I have, it's not something I know with certainty, but I've now been bolder in claiming is the most plausible option, is to say that God has a material dimension. 99% of theologians would agree with Thomas Aquinas, who calls God immaterial. And I think God has both a material and a mental dimension, even though God's invisible and God's a universal spirit. And that idea has been helpful to me as I conceptualize how God might interact with us who have a material dimension as well. So that might seem kind of obscure, but that's kind of one of the things I don't know if I first had that idea in the last 7 years, but it's become something I've been more embracing more.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm struggling a lot with, as the materialness of God, because I like this panentheism idea that God is in all things, but that does confine God to time, even if it be different than how I'm experiencing time. And for some reason, something about that I just don't like. So
I love the way.
I don't know. I don't like that.
I love the verb you have in that sentence that confines God to time. How about we say other people are confining God to being outside of time?
Yeah.
It's interesting. You were the word confined. That's a restriction. Why think of that as a restriction, and being timeless is not a restriction?
Yeah.
We can't perceive timelessness.
Which is another good reason not to believe in it.
That's fair. Maybe the existence outside of time isn't real, which is a huge change for me, because over a long time I would just say the time's not real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think
I remember that.
Yeah, I think I would still probably say something similar. I would say time's not real the way that people think about it. Yeah.
Get out of town. You don't think time is real? I don't believe you.
It's real.
1 second.
It's real. I just don't think it's real the same way.
We're having this thing at 2:30. You said you think time is real because you wanted me to be here at 2:30.
You should have heard him for the past like 20 years.
Yeah. I think he's a hypocrite. Let me put that on this podcast. Josh is a hypocrite. He says there is no time, but wants his guests to be at a particular time on the show.
I have changed to thinking that time's just not real the way people think about it. I believe that given our particular place and matter, that you and I perceive time the same so that we can talk about it in a way that makes sense. But if you were closer to a black hole or something else, we probably couldn't have a conversation of, hey, in an hour, let's do this, because that would mean two different things to both of us.
Well, the problem is that whether or not time is real, clocks are.
But clocks
do exist,
function
and we can follow a
differently
clock.
in different space and situations. So an hour passing on a clock here is different than an hour passing on a clock in space.
Yeah. So one of you will be late.
Yeah, but like that's just time isn't like a fixed thing that just exists.
No.
Well, I agree with you on that. I don't think time is a thing out there in the world that exists. Augustine even said that, even though Augustine's, I think, one of the worst theologians in history when it comes to time. But at least he was right in saying time isn't a thing. But I think you're a hypocrite, Joshua, if you waffle about the reality of time and yet live your life. In fact, inevitably live your life as if time is real. You're being a hypocrite. How's that for being strong here?
Oh, that's not the first time you've said that on this show, I think. That's fine.
It's my way of saying, don't you think you ought to have a theology that matches the way you inevitably live? And you inevitably live as if time is real. So why not have a theology that matches that?
Yeah. I mean, I will cede that time is real, just not the way that we typically think about it.
Well, okay.
Yeah. That's just
Time is like a pair of spandex shorts.
and life is like a fart. With that, what about sin? Is there anything we've changed our mind on regarding sin?
I don't think so.
I'm thinking sin, though, to me, it's less of like a dogmatic, did you break the rules or not? I think subconsciously I probably felt that way for a while. I'm trying to think of what it was that Paul Tillich said. Reading Paul Tillich a couple of years ago had me appreciate this idea better, because it wasn't as much a did you commit a sin and more of a
well, he links sin with anxiety an awful lot. Anxiety is a huge category for Paul Tillich.
Yeah. I felt like it had more to do with not being whole. There we go. So I could tie it back to the salvation thing. I don't think he used that language, but I think that probably is closer to what I'm thinking. It just has more to do with, are you participating in love? Are you, I'm really struggling to try to remember that thing that I liked that Paul Tillich said, but it's just not coming to mind.
Yeah, for me, sin is failing to love when we ought to be loving. And so, but I've thought that for 20 years or more, longer than that, probably 30 years. Probably more than that. Mm-hmm. I bet I've thought that for 45 years. I think I was a teenager, I thought of that. So I don't know that my doctrine of sin has changed much in the last 7 years. I have to think about that.
Yeah. It's interesting you say it in that way, because that's kind of how I was raised, but not about sin. My dad always said that if you can help someone, you should.
Did he also say with great responsibility, great power comes great responsibility? Or
he didn't. He also hasn't been shot.
That's good. I'm glad about that.
Yeah. I think he's been stabbed, but he lived.
Yeah, that is good.
So we don't have to do the whole speech thing.
It sounds like your dad maybe he didn't know about this consciously, but one of the classic ways to talk about sin in Christian theology is to talk about sins of commission and sins of omission. So when your dad says, if you have the ability to help someone you don't, that's still a sin. Well, that's a sin of omission. You didn't do what you ought to do given the circumstances.
Mm-hmm. I will say,
I promise he doesn't.
I do think, listen, the last thing that I think I've changed my mind on. I think that I've changed. I don't know if this was in the last 7 years or if it was before that. The idea that I grew up with was that you could sin and not know it. So that was like, the sacrifices in the Old Testament is like, oh, they didn't know they sinned, so they had to make a sacrifice, and you had to like always be praying because you might have not known that you sinned and you could die and go to hell at any moment kind of deal.
That's right. God's going to, yeah.
Or even if you said something incorrect, but you thought you were telling the truth, but you were wrong, and being wrong is the same as a lie, so you're going to go to hell. That was a big one.
Yep.
I changed my mind on that, and I don't even have to do away with inerrancy with that. I think even the Bible was more talking about like you unintentionally sinned is different than sinning and not knowing it. You know what I mean? There have been plenty of times that I would look at how I have wronged maybe even TJ. I think there are some things that I was like, oh, yeah, I have a great example. He was going to come to my house for something he was helping me with, and I told him a couple days ahead of time that I was going to pay for his gas. I completely forgot. I would say that was an unintentional sin because in that moment I was meant to show him love because he was doing something for me, and I dropped the ball. So I wouldn't think that I don't remember. I think this was like a year ago.
I'm pretty sure usually I just say, don't worry about it.
Yeah, probably.
I get like 30 something miles a gallon.
Anyway, though, the point is, like, I think that would be one that I unintentionally sinned because not because, I lied to TJ and now I'm going to go to hell, but more of
it's true.
I wasn't true to my word. I didn't do this kindness for someone. I kind of took advantage of him, even if I didn't mean to. I still think,
Yeah, it sounds like you've shifted from a Calvinist to a Wesleyan view of sin. Calvinist would say, sin is anything that misses the mark. Whether it's intentional or not, you missed the mark, you've sinned. Whereas Wesleyans would say sins are willful transgressions of a known law of God. So it's got to be intentional. And sounds like you've made that shift.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
I think Calvin was a dork.
Nick will be proud of me. That's true. Calvin was also a hypocrite, but that's I don't like him very much. But we'll talk about that some other day. I'm going to lump the next few categories together. We've already talked about love, so that's, I think, the big one. But I have humanity, creation, and the church. I'm going to lump those together because I think they kind of go hand to hand. How we changed our mind on those things. I think I defined the church a lot more loosely.
I can start with the church. I have become much more pessimistic about the church since the Trump era. I used to have a much higher view of ecclesiology, and seeing the way that the Christian right and Christian nationalism has emerged. And I was always kind of suspicious of the church. I always had there's the true Christians and then there's the fake Christians. But when so many, not only in, Pentecostals or evangelicals, but a bunch of conservative Catholics follow this Donald Trump and buy into this Christian nationalism and justify all this crap, it's really made me more pessimistic about the ability for the church as an institution to function in a prophetic, loving way. Now, I can point to all kinds of Christians who are acting in prophetic ways and are opposing whatever. But I'm just more pessimistic about the church because of the way so many have aligned themselves with Trump.
Yeah, I do think that's fair. I am naively, I'm just going to call myself naive, hopeful that both the church and Republican Party, because I still like what Republicans supposed to be about, are actually going to split. And that whole MAGA Trump section, I'm thinking is going to be its own thing. And I'm hopeful because I think that's going to end up being a much larger section than the church that I love.
May it be so, Joshua.
But yeah. I still think I'm naive, but I'm hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely used to think that the church was, where two or more are gathered in my name. Anywhere that is, you call that the church. You're as close to me as any other. I don't believe that anymore. I think the prettier your church is, the closer it is to heaven. I've been in a lot of really beautiful churches over the past 7 years. I don't know. The Greeks got to me, man. The Greeks got to me.
Art is what does it.
Art, architecture.
Something to be said about that.
Yeah, I'm not being serious, but it's easier to buy into the grandiosity, the mystery.
Well, I'm kind of interested how you'd answer this. I think my definition of church has gotten far looser, because it used to be you have to affirm a certain creed, or I would be like, okay, so maybe you got to believe Jesus and do that. And I think I've come to just more of a point of those who are in love that's probably more how I define the church, even if they're not necessarily using the name Jesus. Because I think what I mean when I say church is I'm thinking of those who are doing, this is going to be a fun callback to before we recorded, I'm sorry, the will of God. So I'm thinking of who is doing the work of love. And that's who I want to have unity with. And I don't think those are always people who are saying Jesus, 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 or will agree with me on the creed. But yeah, so I feel like I've gotten looser in some ways. In some ways, there are probably a lot of people I used to be like, I would consider them Christians. And now I'm like, yeah, they believe the right things, but they don't seem very loving to me. So I'm not sure that I would, and I don't want to do the true Scotsman kind of argument, because, that's just how I'm defined. Probably would distinguish between church and Christian. I think there's a lot of people who are, I would still have to say are Christian, because I don't want to be, oh, that's not a real Christian, because I hate those kind of arguments. I'm not trying to do that. It's just that's not who I'm trying to have unity with. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easy to say, or even to believe in something and not act it out, Yeah.
Which goes back to the Donald Trump stuff.
Yeah. If there's no acts, there's no works. What are you believing? What is belief for you if it's not showing in your actions?
Yeah.
It's really hard to know who counts as Christian and what counts as the church. I haven't figured those out myself. If you do it on love, which I'm very inclined to do, like Joshua, then, lots of Buddhists and atheists or Christians are a part of the church. And it seems like you start to lose any kind of meaning for those words if that's the case. So I don't know how to make sense of all that.
That's my biggest challenge too. I half jokingly tell my one friend who's an atheist that he's the best Christian I know.
Yeah.
And it's a joke in the sense that he's not a Christian, but also me and him have talked enough, and TJ also, that we're like, yeah, no, legitimately, if we think of like Christian as those who are acting like Christ, he's probably actually is the best Christian I know. Even though he would not call himself a Christian, so I would respect him and also not call him a Christian, except for in joking ways and on podcasts where everybody hears.
Yeah, most of the people who I find it easy to define as Christian usually prefer to go by Chris. So.
Good line, TJ. Can I make things uncomfortable for you, Joshua, again, and others who are listening to this podcast?
Oh, I love that.
I was having a conversation with a good buddy of mine at the gym this last week. He's a Mormon bishop, and we talk religion a lot. And he's a guy who came up to me 12 years ago or so, whatever it was, when Obama was running against Mitt Romney, and asked me if I was voting for Obama because I was against Mormons. And I asked him if he was voting for Romney because he was Mormon, or there was some other reason. Anyway, we were both talking about he's a strong Republican, but he doesn't like Donald Trump. And I was telling him, and I'm telling you now, Josh, and your listeners who like the traditional platforms of the Republican Party, but are not happy with Trump. I was telling him that right now in America, people fall into a bunch of different camps and categories. But the most important people politically in America are are Republicans who don't support Trump. You carry the biggest burden right now. We're leaning on you because Trump is not going to be influenced and listen to lefties and liberals and AOC and Bernie buddies and, all those kinds of folks. And of course, the MAGA fans are just going to do whatever he wants, it seems. It seems like that happens over and over. It's you folks who align yourself with the Republican Party, but see the problem with Donald Trump. Right now, this is your time to shine. We need your voice desperately. We need you to, grab a pair of balls and get out there and say what needs to be said, because I think you have the most power and influence at this point in history. So I want to encourage you to use that moment.
Yeah, I do try to take the chances I can to not shy away from saying that I think Donald Trump is evil. Like, I don't think people are born evil. I don't think, there's a lot, like, I try not to use the word evil. Just try not to use the word evil, but looking at his actions and what I believe about God, I'm like, yeah, this is just truly evil. And then also taking morality out of it. Nothing about this administration is Republican. And that I think is just going back to the rationale, analytical stuff that we were talking about earlier with theology. On the political side, I think that's the thing that makes me the most angry is, why is it the side that's supposed to be small government is supporting the president who spent more money federally than any other president in history?
Yeah, and the same people who are non-interventionists are supporting a president who's going to war with Venezuela without the Congress. I mean, you're right.
Makes no sense.
He does so many things that isn't part of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And it's a trend that is maybe worrying, but gives me an idea. We've had two actors as president. Both were pretty bad, generally speaking, if you ask most people. So I think they were both Republican. I'm talking about Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
If someone's lost. Mm-hmm. And the Celebrity Apprentice star, Donald Trump. I think we need a Democratic actor president to see if it's like is something
just
wrong
actors.
with all the actors.
I don't know that are the problem.
Is it like an actor's problem? But
I'm going to suggest something.
If we just got a famous blue actor, like James Cameron.
I'm going to suggest something to you, Joshua, as a language that might help. At least it's language I use and I find helpful. I don't think Donald Trump is evil, but I think he does evil habitually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in other words, he is not intrinsically evil, but he has these habits of lying, of being prideful, all these, I could just go on and on.
Yeah.
And they become habits in his life. So he's not evil, but he does evil habitually.
Yeah. I like that. He does evil habitually. I think I would probably also add supporting someone who does this much evil and enabling him to have the power to do more evil is also evil. The support.
I agree
evil,
with you. And
the people supporting him being evil.
Yeah. The people who do this and justify themselves, they do so by saying the alternative is more evil than Donald Trump is. And I just think they're wrong about that. I think they're not just wrong. Most of them are self-delusional. They're trying to talk themselves into supporting the feelings they have. They're not being very objective. None of us are all truly objective, but they're not even trying to be.
No, I agree. And I'm going to tie that in and TJ's orthodox comment in for the other thing that I changed my mind on before we wrap this part up, concerning humanity and creation and stuff. I have changed my mind on how people are born. I think I would have at the beginning of this podcast said people were born evil. I don't think that. I do think people are born good. I think creation is good. I don't think creation was good and then one thing sinned and now everything is in evil. I like the orthodox mindset of more the existence of sin creating these systems of sin that we are all born into that makes us have a more likelihood to participate in these sinful systems or these broken systems that aren't wholeness making systems. So I like that mindset better. And I think creation is still happening. It's the birth pains of creation continually happening and it's still good. Yeah.
Good.
I think that's where I'm at, which is a more positive note than all the evil of Donald Trump, probably. Yeah. So I think if we were able to maybe embrace more of the good that is part of inerrant creation and less of this hate and dividing that I don't think comes as natural for us. I think we are born in these systems and succumb to evil actions. And I think we can resist it by being more true to the good that we were created as. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. I think we're always intrinsically good, but we always have the capacity to do good or evil.
Yeah.
And we're influenced heavily by our environments and systems. So yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Awesome. TJ, any other thing you change your mind on?
As far as creation goes, I wouldn't say so. Broad strokes purposes, I've pretty much always believed that God caused the Big Bang, and everything in between now and then, minor details. As far as I'm concerned.
Really inconsequential thing I've changed my mind on, actually. I think this has to do with humanity. Breastfeeding in public. Changed my mind on that one. I used to think of it more as like, other bodily functions, using the restroom and stuff. I had a friend who was like, yeah, why wouldn't you think of it more as like sneezing, eating in public? And that does make a lot more sense. So, yeah, changed my mind on that one, just from a pretty clear argument.
I've changed my mind that I used to think of Jack Black as a kind of poser musician, but now I think he's legit. I mean, he's really got a voice. He's really come on. So that's a change. Yeah.
Peaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Tenacious D.
That's right.
So most people who run podcasts or do public speaking seem to rarely mention times that they were wrong or change their minds, which is usually the same as being wrong. But let's talk about why that might be and why it is important that we can change our minds and admit when we've been wrong in the past. Tom, have you ever been wrong about anything ever? Someone say no.
Wrong about things just today. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say that you're wrong about something if you're trying to be right and you know that there's sometimes really negative consequences about being wrong. And if you want people to look up to you and take your opinion seriously or your leadership seriously. So I can understand why I and others sometimes are reticent to admit our fallibility. But the strange thing is that once we do, we discover that most people admire that. If only Donald Trump would learn this lesson, if he would realize that saying I'm wrong is a sign of strength, I think that would be a really healthy move for him. At least I've found that the case in my life and the life of many other people.
Yeah. And I do get why it can be scary, because you don't want people to think you're trustworthy and not a hypocrite. And
right.
I think you only come off as a hypocrite if you just change your mind and never address that you used to be wrong. Then I think you do come off as a hypocrite. Yeah. You gotta at least address it. Yeah. So, Tom, I know you're about to go. You got a little bit of time.
I gotta get going. Yep.
Real quick before we go, we always like to ask if there's something practical people could do for church unity, or Christian unity, or just unity in general. Since we both agree that it's hard to define church or Christian, what do you think is something that people could do that would help us better come together?
My goodness. I think what might help me be more sympathetic toward others, be more united toward them, is remind myself of my own flaws and failures, and then that allows me to have more empathy for others and their flaws and failures, including what I think are their flawed ways of thinking. So that's one thing I would suggest. Also, before I go, I didn't think of this before we got started, but I'd like to invite you guys and your listeners to be a part of a upcoming online conference called Open and Relational Theology Online. It's February 12th through 14th, and we're looking at about 24 books written in the last year on open and relational theology, all kinds of different subjects. Maybe I'll give you the link and you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
That'd be awesome. Yeah,
thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, and thank you for helping, at least helping me change my mind some over the last couple of years. I really appreciate it.
Well, I can say the same for you guys.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see you again, Tom. Hopefully it won't be too long.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Tom.
So, TJ, what do you think would change in the world if everybody did exactly what Tom said? Nothing would change in the world.
Nothing ever. Yeah, he was wrong. Get him back here. I'll say it.
Is that your real answer right now?
No. I think the church and the world at large would, unify. I had to say it. That's what the question was. But it would get easier to live.
Well, maybe an answer Tom would be really proud of. I think we'd see less Donald Trumps in the world, or less success of people who behave in that way. Because I think a lot of, not just politics, but you have pastors and a lot of different leaders who thrive off of this polarization, making enemies out of somebody. And I kind of feel like we'd see less of that. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if they still wanted to be popular, they'd just find something else to do that people liked.
Yeah.
Other than fighting.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, we like to do this thing we call the God moment. Where you ask everyone to share what God's been up to in their life recently, whether that be a blessing or a challenge or a moment of worship, whatever it may be. And I always make you go first, Josh. So, Josh, do you have a God moment for us?
Oh, man. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of which one I want to go with. That can be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
The God moment might even be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. The pile grows.
You know what? I am going to say, so in the podcast we just recorded, and then also last week when I was talking to Josh Patterson about a comic book written by Jason Aaron that I can't say the name of without making this an explicit episode, so I'm not going to. I think I've really been coming up against how much I don't have a good grasp on my own thoughts around the will of God and what it means for God to be in all things. So I'm challenged to struggle with that a little bit more. I think a little deeper on that, see if I can come to terms with that better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. Rough way to start off a year, man. For me, I have twofold. Yesterday, as I was leaving work, I stopped to go to the bathroom. When I was washing my hands, I looked at the mirror and realized my pupils were different sizes. Now, usually, this means you've suffered some severe head trauma, or possibly an aneurysm, or a stroke, or some kind of malignant brain injury. I feel fine, so I'm going to put that one up to God. Thanks. But also, I have not recorded since Christmas. At least not this show.
That's weird, actually.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone listening to this super late. I love Christmas. I love spending time with my family. Mm-hmm. And my favorite part about Christmas this past year, at least, was not the presents. It never is the presents. It's his presents. Amen. And
I can't
just
believe
giving out
that.
presents is pretty funny. But giving presents, it's been more fun for me for quite a while. But my favorite part of this past Christmas was we're like 2 weeks out, and my dad texts me and he's like, "Hey man, we need to do some Christmas shopping so we can get it done." And I'm like, "All right, sure." I had one day off that week, and he was like, "Okay, cool, Saturday, we'll do it Saturday." And might as well start early to beat the crowd. It's like, okay, cool. So I'm already waking up at 7 a.m. on my one day off that week. Rough. And then he's like, we might as well get breakfast because one of his favorite restaurants is over there in that area where we're going to go shopping. And he was like, oh, okay. So
Naturally.
I'm waking up at 6 on my day off to go get breakfast at 6:30 and then go Christmas shopping. So we do all this. All of it. We go to a flea market to shop because we live in South Carolina.
Who doesn't like a good flea for Christmas?
Who doesn't? They're trained these days. Did you know that?
I've heard of it.
They have circuses.
Oh, yeah. It was in A Bug's Life.
Yeah. Yeah, and Coraline.
Oh, yeah.
But we go to the Barnyard Flea Market. We shop for a couple of hours. He doesn't buy anything. I'm like, okay, whatever. We go to Barnes & Noble, Walmart. We had been shopping for about 5.5 hours. And we're leaving Walmart.
I haven't
My
done
last
that
stop.
since like high school.
Yeah.
That's awful.
It's fun. It's a lot more fun to shop in person.
No.
Yeah, it is. But we're walking up to the counter, And he still has not bought a single thing. Not one. So as we're walking to the counter, the self-checkout, because who has real cashiers these days, I say, you didn't need to buy any presents? He said, no, I finished shopping a couple weeks ago.
I love this story. This is awesome.
Yeah. So I think he just really wanted to spend some time together and watch me shop for several hours. That was my favorite part of Christmas.
What, non-ironically, that was your favorite part?
Yeah, I think it was.
That doesn't sound fun at all.
No, it was pretty fun. It's really funny.
That is pretty
It's hilarious. That's great. So funny. Also, I found out what a Barbie dream house looks like in person.
I still haven't seen one of those.
Dude.
Huge?
They're crazy. They're huge.
Man.
It's my height.
Well.
Which isn't that big, but that's big for a dollhouse. So.
That is pretty crazy.
If you like this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. Share with an enemy. Share with your cousins. Share with
Especially your cousins.
Late Christmas spirit and whatnot.
Yeah.
Go to our website, purchase one of our t-shirts to promote our show. I thought I was wearing one. I'm not. Help us raise money. He is. Help us raise money for our podcasting needs and to let others know about the importance of our mission to educate and unite the modern church. My personal favorite shirt, however, I don't remember what it's called. I never do, but it's very plain. It's very normal. It just says the whole church podcast on it.
Is it the TJ quote on the back?
Is that ours?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was for ours or for
it's both.
Systematic
Both
Theology.
of them have that. It's the same joke. It's wonderful. People should go check it out.
That's my favorite
what the
one.
joke is.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Logo on the sleeve. It's a good shirt.
Yeah. Also, consider checking out the other shows on the Honest Podcast Network. You can listen to The Homily with Pastor Chill Will from Chapel Hill. You can listen to Let Nothing Move You with Brandon Knight. Or Mind Seminary Life also with Brandon Knight. But I think I just said that. Did I say it backwards? Let Nothing Move You, Christian Ashley, My Seminary Life with Brandon Knight. Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we hope you did enjoy it. Coming up, we're going to have on Russ Petrus of Future Church of Catholic Women Pray to discuss recent decisions by the Catholic Church and where his organizations may be heading. And after that, we're going to be having Eric Nevins back on the show to discuss the state of Christian podcasts in 2026. Then we're going to have on Andrew Fouts returning to the show to discuss Christian persecution around the world and what Open Door Canada is doing to help. And finally, at the end of season 1, Francis Chan is going to be on the show. And now, Josh, I'm not sure if you know this. He doesn't know, but I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but One Piece is going to be a seasonal anime now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of just following in Oda's footsteps.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just going to have the same length of season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close.
Thank you for listening to the Whole Church Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, you can always sponsor our efforts to educate and unite the church on Captivate, Patreon, or Apple Podcast. If you're not into the subscription thing, again, you can leave a one-time tip on our Captivate website down below in the description notes. Thank you again, and please come back next week.